I'm very impressed with South Park, The End of Obesity. This was released this year in 2024. It's a TV special directed by Trey Parker. It's written by Parker and, of course, stars Parker as the voice of Cartman. And this is, of course, all about Cartman and semaglutide. And I was really curious to watch this for two reasons. One, I always mean to watch more South Park. It seems like something that doesn't appeal to me, but whenever I watch it, I actually enjoy it, and I have an appreciation for how well it's usually done. So I was keen to check it out for that reason, but I also was very curious to see what angle they'd take with this. And what I'm pleased to be able to say is that they're actually very sensitive when it comes to obesity and overweight, and we get to see actually how that can make people feel. That's not to say there aren't some pretty strong jokes in here, but they're not towards obesity, which I think was a really great decision. And a lot of it is making fun of the fact that people who are already slender want to use Ozempic or semaglutide to lose even more weight, and also the problems that can have with regards to availability or shortages of semaglutide. And I think it handled everything really well. There was one thing that I'd never thought of before that I thought was really fascinating. There was something that I thought could be a potential problem with Ozempic that I had never considered before. So I will talk about these with spoiler warnings in a moment. I'll go into a little bit more detail about what happens, but basically about semaglutide. If you're unaware of what this is a fairly new injectable medication, Ozempic being a brand name, that can aid with weight loss. And there have been some great results. And I don't know if it's something that would work for absolutely everybody taking it. Obviously, there needs to be a sense of willpower and commitment. It's not just going to melt the fat away or anything, but it does seem to be helping a lot of people. However, the FDA has only approved this for diabetes. I think there are some other terms. For example, the FDA website does mention that they may recommend it for the treatment of obesity or overweight alongside high blood pressure or high cholesterol. So there are some others, but generally it's something that is being used in the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And Cartman learns that this is the case when he tries to get Ozempic or semaglutide, and he has to navigate the American healthcare system, and we have a charming little song about that. And it definitely helps to highlight just how mind-boggling the US healthcare system is. And out of curiosity, at that point, I Googled how much it costs to make Ozempic. And now this is just off of a Google search, but there are many, many search results saying the same thing. Apparently, and again, I'm just reading off of the internet, so this might not be 100% accurate, but apparently it can cost as low as $5 to make, presumably, one dose of Ozempic or semaglutide. That's disgusting if that's true, because it costs, as this TV special pointed out, but this definitely seems to be the case, it can cost over $1,000 a month. So I think it's a weekly injection, so what, 4 doses, maybe 5? And it only costs $5 to make it. That's disgusting. That really is sickening. And it's not just for Ozempic. It's the same for a lot of medications in the States. It costs pennies or a few dollars to make it, and they sell it for hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I just think it's horrific and horrendous. And I think this TV special does a really great job of helping to highlight that. That's not the main focus, but it does show that this system is ludicrous. People who need medications can't get medications because there are shortages, because people are using it for the wrong reasons when they're not meant to be using it. And it's just, it must be so frustrating if you need this medication. Granted, for weight loss alone, it wasn't something he was allowed to get on his insurance. But if it's something that he genuinely needs for his health, and then you have people who are already quite thin and not overweight using it to lose more weight, thus creating a shortage, and maybe even hiking the prices up because it's a kind of supply and demand thing. If there is this huge demand for it, maybe companies are making them even more expensive. I don't know if that's true. I have no evidence to support that. But generally, that's how supply and demand works. If there's a big demand, they can put the prices up because people are willing to pay that. And it's very frustrating. although this is frustrating, it is a very fun watch as well. There is enough comedy in this, there are light-hearted moments, but at the same time I think it's addressing a really serious topic that is affecting a lot of people in often a really sensitive way. And I think they did an absolutely fantastic job with it. And of course, we have the animation style, really well done. The pacing of the narrative, the whole thing is about 50 minutes. So it is a feature, just about a feature length. And I think it was very easy to be engaged throughout. I did find, not quite the end of it, but somewhere near the end, something happens with some cereal box characters. I liked the characters. I thought that was quite fun, but something happens that I didn't really care for with those characters. You'll know which bit I mean when you see it. But apart from that bit, I found it to be very engaging, very enjoyable, very, very thought-provoking, and I think really important, really significant, especially just now. It raises a lot of really crucial points, and as I said, a few things that I hadn't thought about, so I will mention those now. But to sum up very, very briefly, South Park, The End of Obesity, is very well done. It raises some really important topics. As I've not seen a tremendous amount of South Park, I can't really say how it compares to the average South Park episode or TV special, but watching it from my perspective, I thought it was exceptionally well done. So I will now explain a few things that it made me think about that I've never considered before. One, kind of a positive thing. One, maybe a concern. And the positive thing is that maybe it can help people find the willpower they need. This is what we see with Cartman, because he is concerned he's not going to get his second dose. And that means his willpower has gone away. But when he had the first dose, obviously it's doing whatever chemical things it does. But it also gave him the willpower because, in my interpretation, it was like he felt like he had a helping hand. Like he wasn't doing this completely on his own. He had semaglutide by his side, and that helped give him the willpower. And I've never thought of that before. I was only ever, whenever I thought about it, only really thinking of the actual benefits of the medication directly, not necessarily how it could help somebody feel like they've got the support and they're able to proceed with this with a much more positive, hopeful attitude, which I think could be really significant. So that was something that I thought was really fascinating. On the flip side, and this may be something other people had considered, but I hadn't, and this is a slight concern, that people, not necessarily people who have got no indication of diabetes, but maybe if somebody is pre-diabetic, they might, and I hope they wouldn't, but maybe some people will push their bodies to become diabetic in order to get it on their insurance. And obviously that sounds like a horrific thing, but if you're basically very close to being diabetic and that is all it would take to get semaglutide on your insurance, I hope nobody would think that that's the right thing to do. But if you're desperate for this and it seems like a viable option, I would hope nobody does this. And the reason that I thought this is because in the film, because of the use of Lizzo, which is something I didn't really get very much. I'm aware of Lizzo, but not in any great detail. But one of the characters got diabetes, which is like a mild form of diabetes in the ears. It's obviously illogical and for the purpose of this, for the film. But we then immediately see that character being prescribed semaglutide because they now qualify. So on the one hand, I think the film or the special could have done a little bit more to highlight the potential dangers of having type 2 diabetes, in case anybody's not really fully aware of what it is and they just think, well, if I've been told I'm pre-diabetic, if I become... Having said that, I don't know if Ozempic is available for pre-diabetes or just diabetes, but either way, if somebody thinks that if they get a diagnosis of diabetes, then maybe they'll get Ozempic, but maybe they're not fully informed about what diabetes actually is and what it does to the body and why it happens, then I think maybe the episode or the special could have done a little bit more to share that kind of information. At the same time, it's not a film about diabetes, it is a film about semaglutide, so it didn't need to be in there, but I think it could have been beneficial. But that aside, I thought this was really, really brilliant, very informative, very thought-provoking. The animation is good, the pacing of the narrative is good, and I think they were sensitive at the right times. Again, it's South Park. There are going to be some jokes and some dialogue in there that's maybe not great for people who are sensitive in general, but I was very impressed with how they handled obesity. And I think Cartman was a really brilliant character throughout all of this. I'm impressed. Definitely recommend it. Even if you're not a South Park fan, if you are interested in semaglutide, if you're interested in the mind-boggling world of American healthcare, it's definitely worth checking out. I'm very impressed. It seems to be very well received. South Park, The End of Obesity, is definitely worth watching.